What up, nerds, and welcome to another romantic episode of Straight Chilling, the weekly horror movie review show where you chill and we kill, slice, dice, and chop up yet another horror movie. My name is Bob. I'll be your host for the evening. This is episode number 358, recorded on Sunday, February 13th, 2022. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the winner of the February poll pick, which is A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night from 2014. Before we get into it, let me introduce everyone else on the show. First up, calling in from Washington, D.C., we got our boy, Randu. What's up, man?
So plump, so right. How do? How's it going?
You big flirt.
That's me, man. You know, it's European style.
Oh, interesting. European style.
You're just going to cue yourself up with all the quotes and just...
Yeah, you know, it's more than I usually do.
Welcome to the Randu Show.
Yeah. Welcome to the morning Randu Zoo.
The Randu Zoo. I'd listen to that on my daily commute.
I'll bet you would, buddy. It's going to be very scatological, so it's tailored for you, really.
Hallelujah. Last but not least, calling in from Jacksonville, Florida, we got our boy, Soju. What's up, man?
What up, bitch boy? Goth boy stains. It's what all the ladies are looking for on Valentine's Day, huh?
Just a sad
boy to fix.
Sad boy in black.
Their sad boy, goth boy fix.
Mm-hmm. Shopping at Hot
Are
Topic.
you calling a cootie queen, you lint liquor?
Dude, you cooter queen. Actually, this turned out to be a pretty surprising good match for Valentine's Day.
I know. I was thinking that, too.
Yeah. Good call,
Maybe we should
Bob.
release it on Valentine's Day and break our format like 3 weeks into the year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're going to release it Wednesday.
Oh, fuck.
Psych. Yeah, this is the winner of the February poll pick. And yeah, before we get into it, let's tackle a little bit of housekeeping real quick. Speaking of poll picks, we got our March poll pick currently posted on the Patreon website. If you support us at the $5 level or above, you get the chance to vote on a movie we're talking about in March. The theme for March is Nasty Nola, and the movies to vote between are The Skeleton Key, Interview with a Vampire, and The Beyond.
Hey, Bob.
Yo.
How those numbers looking? They all tied up again?
Pretty much. Well, Interview with the Vampire and The Beyond are tied. The Skeleton Key has fallen back a few votes.
I see.
Oh.
No, my lord. Tight race.
Honestly, like, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of out of those two. I'd probably pull for The Beyond. I don't know about you guys. Should we be backing a horse? I don't remember the etiquette of this segment.
I don't know. I don't know. We might want to keep the vampire theme kicking. We've already got a couple more in the wings. Maybe it's the year of the vampire, year of the bat.
It's Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise stains is a hard sell for me.
That is the only thing. However, Kirsten Dunst and what's his name? Brad Pitt.
What's his name?
They carry a lot of weight themselves.
They do. But I mean, maybe it's the year of Fulci too. I don't know. Well, some blood and guts, some spiders and bizarre music.
Okay.
Right. You know, The Beyond.
All right.
Get your votes in before the end of February, and we'll see what movie we're talking about in March. In other Patreon news, we're going to be releasing a brand new mini cast this Friday, the 18th. If you support us at the $10 level or above, you get access to a whole bunch of Patreon-specific material. This Friday, I'm going to be releasing a show where I did like a recap of the entire Texas Chainsaw franchise. So there's a new Texas Chainsaw movie being released on Friday. It's going straight to Netflix. And I was like, oh, let me do a quick...
Prepared to be bedazzled.
Yeah. Let me do a quick googe and see like what Texas Chainsaw movies are even in the franchise. And I realized I hadn't seen like half of them. Watched all that shit. Yeah. Talked about all 8 movies in this mini cast, so slam it into your ear holes.
Bob, you truly are a man of the people. Good on you, my guy. You're really delivering for the.
You're putting in the hours.
I'm not being sarcastic. No, I am really applauding Bob because that franchise is rough. And plus, for a mini episode, you usually watch like one movie or maybe a show or something. But damn, 8 movies. Good on you, Bob.
It's a full Chainsaw survey.
That's some quality material right there for the old supporters.
Yeah, enjoy that. And hopefully we'll be enjoying the new Texas Chainsaw movie as well.
Hopefully.
Man, that's I would love that franchise to have a winning record.
Well, I would love for them. The bar's low.
Yeah,
so they got that going for them. So good luck.
It's hard to do much worse than the Leatherface, that last one that came out.
Woo.
Did not see.
You didn't miss much. I think that's all we got for Patreon. Do you guys have anything you want to mention?
No.
Nah, bro.
My house is clean.
Just the Babadook still via a cut above, but I brought that up last week. So
yeah, the bonus date with Soju for Valentine's Day is all sold out. So thank you to everyone who supported that for the $6,900 you pitched in. Appreciate you.
What do they get? Like foot jobs from you or what?
Look at my feet, you piece of shit.
Something like that. Yeah, you piece of shit. That's Bob's. That's Bob's Valentine's special. You piece of shit.
You gotta pay for a date.
There's people that'll pay good money to be called a piece of shit by somebody while stomping on an old watermelon or something.
I know. I need to get my feet game up. I need to step it up.
Yeah, you do.
Melon murdering time, you piece of shit. I do want to say, I want to say a big thanks to everybody that hung out with us this past Friday for our Joe Bob watch party. We had a solid crew. We usually do. He showed Black Roses and Frankenhooker. It was pretty dope. We were also like being bombarded by trolls, which was kind of a new thing. That's never happened before.
It just means more shit I gotta do now.
That's
yeah,
true.
you gotta start appointing
moderators.
Bob.
Yeah, G-Baby like stepped into the role immediately, and he was like hitting me up on the side DM. He's like, "Yo, this guy's gotta go." I was like,
yeah,
thank you.
G-Baby's hashtag hard with us for sure.
Yeah, he was a big help for sure.
I'm questioning the strategy of bringing this up on the air, therefore feeding the trolls. But
yeah,
well, I guess
G-Baby's on his game, so we got it covered.
Yeah.
G-Baby's got his work cut out for him now because.
The last thing I want to mention is just another reminder: we're raffling off a Straight Chilling prize pack to anybody that leaves us a 5-star review. A 5-star rating and a review on iTunes. That is, if you do both of those by the end of the month, you'll be automatically entered in a raffle. We'll draw a name early March, and we'll see who wins. Thanks to everybody that has done that already. I noticed a few new pop up over the week, and we really do appreciate it. Helps people find us. I was going to ask
about that. Yeah. So we have gotten a few since you announced it, huh?
Yeah. Thank you guys. We appreciate it. It's an easy way to support the show. It only takes a couple seconds, and it legitimately helps new listeners find us. So thank you for that.
And it's a really small raffle pool, so pretty good odds for you.
True.
And it helps you shove it in the face of our haters.
Fuck the haters.
Who thinks some of us are idiots.
All of us, really.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's all we got. Our houses are clean.
How dare they be so correct?
His house is clean.
How dare they throw it in our faces?
Yeah.
On the internet.
You're not supposed to say that out loud. We are.
Let's get into the main event. We're talking about A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, and we're kicking it off with the back of the box.
What's on the back of the box?
All right.
Bob, you got that box, don't you?
I got that box. Kino Lorber put out a really great edition of this movie a few years ago.
Bless you.
It's got a shitload of bonus features on it. I guess this was also like a Vice film, so like partnered with Vice. I guess they produce movies as well. It comes with a comic book. There is a Girl Walks Home Alone at Night like comic book series, and it comes with a couple of those. And there's like some scholarly writings and some dope artwork. Anyway,
that's pretty cool. I didn't know about the comic.
Yeah, it would lend itself really well. I haven't seen it, but
yeah, definitely. I read the books that are in here. I'll talk about that later, though. So yeah, this came out in 2014 with a runtime of 1 hour and 41 minutes. It's written and directed by Ana Lily Amirpour. Stars Sheila Vand, Arash Marandi, Marshall Manish, and some other folks. The plot synopsis is as follows. Strange things are afoot in Bad City, the Iranian ghost town home to prostitutes, junkies, pimps, and other sordid souls, is a place that reeks of death and hopelessness, where a lonely vampire is stalking the town's most unsavory inhabitants. But when boy meets girl, an unusual love story begins to blossom. Blood Red. Gentlemen, had you seen this movie before, and would you recommend people check it out? Randy, kick us off.
Yeah, I had seen this movie once before, and it wasn't like right when it came out. It wasn't in theaters, but it was not that long after. Because I believe you brought this home when we were living together. Yeah, and we threw it on. But yeah, I would generally recommend it. I think that I don't think it's for everybody though. It's really kind of it's a pretty slow film, so you got to be ready for that. Some people just really cannot fucking deal with subtitles, so there's that too. But yeah, I think, and it's also not like a like very bombastic or very like there's not a ton of like quick action in this. It's very subdued. So if you're down with all of that and none of that is a ding for you, then I would say, yeah, check it out.
All right. Juice, what about you?
Yeah, I had seen this before too. I don't think I saw it with y'all, but I probably saw it around the same kind of time frame. I can't remember if it was before we started the podcast or early into the podcast days, but I did watch it and didn't care for it at that time. So this is my first rewatch. I've always carried that memory of just not being very pleased with this film, and I liked it a lot better this watch around. So that was kind of nice. I think maybe the slow pacing had something to do with it. But the thing about this movie, I would generally recommend, but it also has very strong flavors. And I think it's directed at a very kind of specific audience. The sad boys, goth pixie girls are like who this is made for. It's slow. It's like moody. It's music driven. And like, that's just, not to say they're the only ones who can enjoy it, but it's that flavor also mixed in with like a spaghetti Western kind of feel, which is very opposite of what you usually get from the pixie goth girls and whatnot,
and delicious.
So I don't know. So it's not going to be for everyone. Also, too, I think there are some hurdles for general audience, like Randy mentioned, the subtitles and general setting and stuff. So that could be difficult as well. But for me, I generally would recommend if you're looking into something a little more moody or artsy. Bob?
Yo.
Hi.
Bob, you were like a big time fan of this. I think you've been trying to get it on the show for a long, long time at this point.
Yeah.
Or like been talking about it anyway.
I definitely am a fan of this movie. This wasn't like a slow grow for me. Like as soon as I watched it, I loved it. I think this is definitely an art house movie, and those types of movies are very hit or miss for me. I know the director is a huge fan of David Lynch, and I think you can see some of that influence in here. David Lynch's movies are a little more out there than this movie is. This one is like pretty subdued if you compare it to most of Lynch's work. But I think this movie really is just kind of like for the art house crowd. If you like that kind of thing, I think you're going to really appreciate this. This is from a director that has like a very specific story she's trying to tell. Like, I guess it's an auteur, like kind of an auteur's vision, so to speak. And I think she pulls it off really well. It is a bit of a slow burn. It's black and white. You got subtitles or whatever, but I think the story pays off well enough in the end to justify like subjecting yourself to that if those things are not what you're typically into. So I dig this movie, and I definitely recommend it. I think it's worth watching. If you're just a film fan in general, I think it's worth watching. So that sounds like a decent recommend from the Straight Chilling crew. Let's go ahead and drop that spoiler warning, and we'll get into the rest of the movie. Here we go.
Spoiler warning.
All right.
Bob, you got that plot synopsis? Should be pretty skinny.
I got it, and yeah, it's on the lighter side, so I'll blast through this fairly quickly.
So only 5 minutes then.
Only 15 minutes. All right. A young Iranian man named Arash lives with and takes care of his heroin-addicted father, Hussein. A drug dealer and
Skip to the end.
I'm getting there. A drug dealer and pimp named Saeed steals Arash's car because his father owes him so much money. Arash then steals a pair of diamond earrings from the woman he works for so he can pay Saeed. Saeed ends up coming across a strange woman who convinces him to bring her back to his house. She grows fangs and kills him. Arash finds Saeed dead in his house, and he takes his car back. He also steals a briefcase full of drugs. Arash later goes to a costume party at a nightclub dressed as Dracula. He begins selling the drugs and is convinced to take some ecstasy himself. He becomes disoriented and gets lost on the way home. The vampire woman ends up coming across Arash, and he shows some vulnerability and some compassion towards her. She ends up taking him back to her place, and they listen to some music. She resists biting his neck. They meet again the next night, and Arash gives her the earrings he stole and pierces her ears with a safety pin. The vampire woman follows the prostitute Saeed owed money to and pays her. Hossein begins suffering from heroin withdrawal, and Arash gives him some drugs and some money, kicks him out of the house, tells him to take the cat too. Hossein finds a prostitute and forces her to take heroin with him. The vampire finds them, and she ends up killing Hossein. The prostitute sees what the vampire does. She tells her to take the cat and get the hell out. The next morning, Arash finds his father's dead body, and he runs over to the vampire's apartment, asking her to skip town with him. He then sees his father's cat and realizes she had something to do with his death. Arash and the woman drive out of town, and a frustrated Arash pulls off to the side of the road, gets out of the car. He's unsure what to do. He then gets back into the car. Arash and the woman drive off together. Roll credits. So yeah, it's a slim story. There's not a whole lot of meat on the bone, but I think the way the story is portrayed and like the visuals and just like the overall like aesthetic of this movie is what really it's what captivated me, and I think that's probably what would captivate most people. And even though it's a simple story, I think you feel the characters. I think they're well written, and like I think the performances are so strong that you're pulled in to this like love story, this blossoming love story, and you get a good sense of like this terrible town they're living in. So even though it's like slim, I think it's I don't know, emotionally driven, I guess I could say.
I think that like the whole thing is like pretty, I don't know, there's something about it where it's a very simple story, and that works to its benefit because it allows them to show a lot more without telling. You know what I mean? There's not a big need for exposition. So they let just, things kind of play out the way they do. And it leaves enough like questions at the end, I think, about like, some of the nuts and bolts of it, some of the, maybe some of the subtext, whatever, for you to chew on, but it doesn't exactly trip you up because the story itself is pretty straightforward. At least for at least the stuff that we kind of have factual inferences from. So I appreciate that about the movie, actually.
Yeah. And she does a great job of setting up a mood through different things other than like exposition, like we said. And even though it is a slim story, the setting really plays a lot into what's going on here. The music choices affect the general mood a lot. And I think generally she does a good job with those choices. As a kind of art house film, especially deciding to make it black and white, as far as the setting goes, there are a couple of just, standalone shots like far off, especially one time where the vampire's following the prostitute woman. There's this one long, like kind of slanted road. There's this place that they revisit a couple of times where it's just this pit where there's just not like bodies. A big ditch where there's just a bunch of bodies. And so that sets a kind of ominous tone, but it also just kind of sets the idea of where you are and this general kind of poverty that permeates through this place. And the slim story kind of lends itself to that because the place almost in some ways feels like a ghost town itself. And so that just kind of lends to it almost gives the story an excuse to be slim. Like who's left here? Like what's actually here to focus on is like, you're actually seeing the most interesting things anyways. And so that kind of lends itself to that mood, which is interesting. I found it as a strength this time, whereas I think before it was a negative for me.
Well, you used to have less patience for slow movies in general. You were very much in the Guy Ritchie fandom of pacing at the beginning of this podcast.
It's true. I remember one of the first ones that turned me away from that general kind of mood was House of the Devil, where I was really kind of blown away. I remember specifically saying, I'm not usually a big fan of slow moving movies, but like that blew me away. And I remember that kind of shift happening there. This time, I still think she has general pacing issues as a filmmaker. And I'll talk about, like, I started watching The Bad Batch again. And I think sometimes she relies too much on the music to set a mood, where it's like there probably should be more dialogue. Like, I feel maybe she's not super confident because she's usually writing and directing these movies. And I feel like maybe she's just like kind of working with her strengths, but also I can see the limitations. So I'm thinking like maybe she doesn't have the confidence or doesn't think she's good enough at writing a lot of dialogue. And so she's kind of filling those holes. And while I think like maybe that's the best choice for you as a filmmaker, I can also sometimes see it as a limitation of you as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
at least
within the context of this movie, I think it's like the music might be one of the strongest aspects, which is saying something because the visuals in this are what people immediately notice. And for good reason, is the cinematography in this is incredible. But I would put the music choices and the needle drops that they choose on par with it. It sets place and time. It sets most importantly, it sets emotional tone and mood, and even can, if it's, in English anyway, and the English drops, those are help inform, character motivations, things like that, in really small, subtle ways. And more than that, like the songs are just fucking great. I was like walking out of this time around, I walked out of it thinking like, I got to get my hands on this soundtrack. This is an incredible soundtrack.
Yeah, it's great. So, she's said in the past that she writes these movies with songs in mind. So like she's already got like a song list of like things that she'll try and get, and she'll hand out soundtracks to the actors and actresses before they shoot a frame of the movie, so like they know exactly what's going to be playing while they're doing this scene, which I think is a cool way to go about it. I wanted to talk about, I guess, like some of the themes of this movie. I think the main takeaway that I have here is like, I guess this idea of like draining something of its life force. Obviously, like vampires are that's just what they do, right? This was shot in a real town in California. It's called Taft, and it's an oil field that's been pumping and pumping for, I don't know, decades. And it's still operating to this day. And I guess Ana Lily Amirpour grew up like at a town next door, so like she's very familiar with it. And like in this movie, in the background, you see like these giant machines just like pumping oil out of the earth. Just draining the earth of its resources, and then like the company. It's sort of like a company town. Like the people that live there, if you're not selling drugs, if you're not prostituting, you're working for the oil company. So like you get a sense of like this town's life force has just been like drained via this oil company. And then you've got like on another like more surface level, like, a vampire just sucks blood out of people. That's just what they do. They have to do that to live. So there's sort of like this ongoing theme of this happening like to everybody in this movie in different ways, I guess, and some of them in multiple ways. I think that's just sort of like an interesting theme running throughout this movie. There's also like a drug addiction, like a theme of drug addiction happening here. The town is riddled with druggies. Hossein is obviously the one that we're subjected to in the movie. And I think, like vampirism and drug addiction, there's like some thematic, some themes going on there, some parallels there. And she basically kills it. Every dude that she comes in contact with, except for Arash.
Everyone she kills is a man,
Right, is a man, who's doing bad things. Like she's sort of like wielding her vampirism.
Actually, that's not exactly true. There's a couple critiques I have is I feel like she has some ideas or like things are set up like that, but maybe she doesn't flesh some things out or some things contradict, because there is one time where they show her and she just kills a homeless man who's like laying in an alley. So that is the one time we don't see her kill someone that we know to have done something wrong.
I mean,
Here's
He's
the thing,
just homeless.
And if I may offer a little bit of context that I found, this was what is interesting to me because my mind works when I'm watching movies like this, especially art housey movies, where I'm trying to sort of like decipher, subtext, the message that's being conveyed, underneath the whatever the parable is, whatever's laying under the surface.
Yeah.
And this movie, with this movie, I was like, okay, I don't know a lot about Iranian culture. I don't know, I don't have no inroads there. But there's like a lot of similarities between this and class struggle and things like that. And there's a lot of like thoughts I had similar to what you were saying, Bob, about like the idea of draining the life out of something, draining the life out of the earth, draining the life out of victims, draining the life out of people via drugs, draining the life out of people via your wealth. Like all of those things, I think, can definitely be brought to attention. But the thing that was interesting is that I read one review of this from the time. I can't remember who did it now, and I feel bad. But anyway, they were saying that Amirpour had gone on record as saying that this was not intended to be really in any way political, and she doesn't like shy away from it potentially being. She's like, yeah, you can definitely read it that way. Like, it's not something that I set out to do. It's not something that I set out to. I'm not necessarily trying to make a big statement about anything, but there's some level of grounding to, real world things that is required of any story, really. And that's what I'm doing here. I think you could draw a lot out of it, especially with, as Americans watching a film by an Iranian director and about an Iranian town, like it's going to immediately scream politics to the Americans in the room, I think, just out of just our relationship with that part of the world. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, between those things, I think it's pretty interesting, and almost like that you bring up, like, I thought the same thing about the homeless man that was murdered in this movie. Like, I think I could rationalize, or I could think through, like, okay, how does that, what statement is that making? What does that say about her? What does it say about the story? But the fact that she did not intend anything by that almost gives me a little bit of leeway for her as a director in that moment, because it's like, okay, like if her main goal is not to be political, it's like the subtext isn't the focus. It's about the mood and the feeling of these characters specifically, and really not trying to branch beyond that. I can respect that. And, like, we can definitely talk about the politics of it, and I think we should, but the idea that she's not aiming for that, I think gives her a little bit of slack there.
Well, and that's not even one thing. It was interesting when Bob was talking about, I was like, oh yeah, that does, because they do have this one specific scene that sets up at the oil fields, like as part of their date or whatever, where she's piercing her ears. But my first connection to the vampirism was the idea of the drugs. And I did pick up on the idea that she also was kind of like punishing people or whatever. But it's a weird kind of perception thing too, because we see her, she approaches the boy and she, threatens him and comes off in a very menacing way, where she literally like, I'll feed your eyes to dogs, but be a good boy. So she sets this kind of moral compass. We do see her kill the homeless man. But on the other side of things, if we're like making this kind of connection to the idea of drug use, and like, okay, what other characters do we have, and how do they play into this type of situation, where we have the first drug dealer who's huge Cooter piece of shit, throws his weight around, abuses people and stuff like that. And then we have this other guy who who takes up the mantle and almost uses it as a way to kind of just take care of himself. And you're supposed to be more sympathetic in a way. He's a love interest, like, oh, look at this guy. And they show him in different settings. Oh, he's given ecstasies to girls at parties, and it's in a more fun setting. People are enjoying themselves. He's not abusing this power. But then on the flip side, his dad obviously is in a huge negative kind of way. And then ultimately the prostitute with like their heroin use and stuff like that. And so it plays with these kind of perceptions, oh, you're kind of rooting for the vampire woman when she's punishing people. But then what happens when she's just surviving and she's feeding off innocent people? And then like, oh, you're against this drug dealer when he's a huge piece of shit and he's, abusing his power or whatever. Oh, but then you have this other drug dealer kid who you're supposed to fall in love with or be like, oh, how romantic. And so that's kind of interesting, but also conflicts with itself in some ways.
I don't
Makes
think
it
so.
muddled.
I mean, I think that's true to
so.
life, man. I mean, nothing is cut and
Yeah.
dry.
No,
It's all gray.
Yeah.
But I get your point. Like, if you're like really searching for meaning in this movie, it could be confusing. But I think that is true to life, though. Go ahead, Randy.
Yeah,
I think that is the meaning. What you just said, Bob, is I think that is like, if we're going to try and decipher that, my description of what that is, you know, people existing on a spectrum of good and evil. Like there's no, like you have it literally like vampire in this movie that is traditionally seen as, you know, Satan's concubine or whatever, you know, Satan's right hand, whatever it is. And then you've got like this hardworking go-getter kid who can't catch a break because he lives in hell, basically. And like they're like the idea that he through happenstance winds up in a situation where he has all this like God knows how much money worth of drugs to get rid of and a crush on this, you know, the wealthy girl that can maybe pull him out of poverty, maybe, or also just somebody he's attracted to and he's tried to be respectful of, and all this, like he has, you know, all these things going on. So he's seduced by it a little bit, and he is not without good reason, because he needs to support himself too. You know, and he's trying to buy his way out, just like the prostitute, you know, just like most of the characters who aren't just wallowing in the shit like our original drug dealer. He's even like tries to put limits on how much the girls can take. And he's trying to be considerate of these girls. So I think the fact that we're considering him differently is because he's acting differently than that guy. Like he may be performing the same function societally, but he's doing it with more caution and more, you know, more responsibility involved. Yeah. And so I don't think that that's necessarily conflicting so much as it is showing like, just like our vampire, who's not all bad, he is not all good. Yeah. And you can exist on those planes. And like he, at the end of this movie, he kicks his own father out because his father is fully junkied out. And his father just takes his lumps and just goes. Once he gets his drugs, he's happy to leave. And then that leads to his father getting killed by his girlfriend, which we didn't realize at the time. But like, you know, he obviously feels guilt about that, and he decides to live with that guilt by way of living with the person that made him most happy. And
I like that ending.
I think it's about coping, like in some ways.
Yeah, I agree. I like that ending this time. I didn't even remember that was the ending. There were a lot of scenes that I had forgotten that I was kind of reliving almost for the first time again, because a lot of it just kind of was lost. And I like that ending this time, that acceptance of, you know, he kicked him out for a reason. And, you know, he kind of concludes what this woman has done, because she even gives the warning, like, you don't know the terrible things I've done. So she's setting herself up in that way, you know, like I'm no saint or whatever.
Killing and taking from people. Like,
yeah. And that was the thing too, is even with this guy set up, nobody in this movie is like innocent, because he was, and at first I thought they were setting everybody up with a specific vice, because the first thing that he does, he's a thief. You know, he becomes a drug dealer through thievery, essentially. But the first thing we see him do is go steal a cat. He steals earrings. He steals the drugs. And, you know, that's how he makes his thing. And so you're dealing with, you know, a pimp, a thief, a junkie, and a prostitute.
And a vampire.
Through the main course of this, and a vampire. Yeah. Who's kind of dealing out punishment. Now there's the kid. And another critique I'm going to have too is the other girl who comes to the party, who's supposed to kind of add a general sense of, I think, like some sort of occupants to this town, like to kind of fill it out. You know, they go to a party and like, look, there are people here. But for the most part, this town feels almost too empty. There's never any other time you see people. And I know mostly she's walking around at night
and alone.
Yeah, but there's no other people occupying this town for the most part.
They're all dead in a ditch, man.
Yeah.
See, yeah, that's the thing. Is like, I think this is like a harsh land. Like, this is Bad Batch Part 1 in many ways, because this is a hellscape that they live in.
Yeah.
So that doesn't really bother me. Like, the idea, actually, like, what's interesting about the person that he works for as a gardener and as, I guess, a handyman, he's invited to their party, but it's, I think, primarily because he has a hookup for drugs. So there's these girls that are defined by their excess in this movie, and one that he's very, taken with, and one that he even bends his own moral ethics for in order to try and, win favor with her. And then she rejects him or whatever. And it's like, I don't know, there's something going on with class in this. And I think that having them be so sparse, having the story exist outside of the world of the excess is very much intentional. This is about people that, don't have, they just exist. They try to continue existing, as opposed to people who get tired of costume parties and don't notice when their however expensive earrings go missing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. If there's anything being said about this movie about class, then I wouldn't be surprised at all. I'm not entirely sure if, again, it's not necessarily intentional, but I think it's like showing the struggle of poverty. Like, I think that's what this movie is about. So that is in contrast to, not necessarily as an additional like role that needs to be fulfilled.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot you can read into this movie for sure. Something that I also wanted to touch on that's a little more like surface level, and I don't think you are reading this into it. I think this was very intentional on the filmmaker's part. I mean, the title of it alone, A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, like it's very much a trope in horror movies and just movies in general. Like, I mean, it's a real life situation. If a girl is walking home alone at night, it's dangerous. It just is. Mm-hmm. This movie sort of like subverts that danger and like, yeah, there is a girl walking home alone at night, but she is the prowler. Like, if anybody's
the danger.
Yeah, if anybody's doing wrong,
I am the danger.
They need to fear her. I mean, this is just like a very feminist film. I think the subversion of that alone makes it a feminist movie, and also adding in like the Iranian culture, like her wearing a chador in this movie. Like, she wears it because she chooses to wear it. Like, she could do whatever she wants. She's a vampire. You can't kill her. She takes it off. She shows her hair when she wants to. There's a brief scene where she's fully nude, and all of that would be like very much not welcome in an Iranian film.
But they're always when she's alone, though. Like, even when she shows her hair, she's isolated in her own room.
I think it helps her blend into that society.
Sure. That was my thinking. Yeah.
But also that, like, it's almost like an iconic sort of like it almost makes her look like the death from God, what is that Bergman movie? The Seventh Seal, like that. All cloaked in dark and then white face. Like, it's that iconography.
That's true.
I can't say that word.
It's classic vampire. I mean, it's what it is,
right.
but it just sort of lends itself
like those
to the
things.
Yeah,
it's pretty smart. Yeah, actually,
it's just a smart use of that cultural artifact. Really.
Yeah. I don't know. I think the feminism is like definitely on the surface level of this movie. I think that and like the love story are really the point, like the overwhelming point of this film. And then anything else that you read into it, I think is just sort of like bonus material, so to speak.
Yeah,
that seems fair. I mean, also, like, I don't know. The article that I read was called "Take Back the Night," which is, for, if you guys don't know, I don't know if you do. There's like, that's a nonprofit group or like an initiative of some kind called "Take Back the Night" that is specifically about, altering society in such a way so that a girl walking alone at night wouldn't need to fear for her life. You know what I mean? And so they do like nighttime marches and things like that. I've had friends participate. I haven't, seen one myself, but I think that's, like you said, that is directly in the title of this movie. That is what this movie, I think it'd be a hard sell to say this movie isn't about that. So yeah, good on you. That's a good call.
Yeah, it is. And see, I do like that. And I think this is where it gets hurt a little bit by its like ghost town skinniness feel, because while I do think it sets up the setting well and it sets up ideas of it works well with certain themes like poverty and I don't know, just certain things. But where it hurts, I think, is maybe a little bit of the idea of fleshing out the feminist idea, because the people that we deal with, it's in a very limited scope, and they're all dealing with each other. So like we have two people to really focus on, like, oh, these are who she kills, these are the people that she punishes, and neither of them try to attack her. So with the idea of like a girl walks home alone at night, that is a dangerous situation, yet she is the danger. You would think that maybe in one scene you would get that trope flipped on its head. Like she's walking home alone at night and gets attacked. And instead she becomes the attacker or is trying to take advantage of. But instead what it becomes is she seduces this pimp on the street. He doesn't attack her. He doesn't try to rape.
Stands there and he's like, come home. She doesn't seduce him.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is he's not attacking her. He's not trying to rape her. He's not trying to drug her. He takes her home.
He takes her home after forcing a prostitute that works for him to give him a blowjob.
I know. So what I'm saying is the idea, if we're going to name it that title, that's what I'm saying. He's but that's what I'm saying where it gets a little confusing, because not confusing, but slim, because the only people we see her punish is the people who deal directly with the prostitute, who represents a woman in this movie. And that's great, working toward the feminist thing. So, but the problem is like, we also know that this girl is following and watching the prostitute because she addresses her directly. I've been watching you. You're sad. Things like that. And so it dilutes it a little bit, because the only people that we see are limited in this very slim pool. Is she doing it because they're mistreating this specific woman? Is she what I'm saying? It's like if we saw the pimp misuse the prostitute woman, and then also follow this woman home who he thinks he can also take advantage of, throws himself onto her, attacks her as if she's walking home alone. Oh, you have no protection. She turns on him, and he becomes the prey.
You want to see the altering of
not just that. I want to see something happen outside this very limited pool, because the only people who are punished are Hussein and the pimp, Saeed or whatever, who directly attack or directly put themselves on this prostitute woman. And since we know, not on the vampire woman herself. And so each instance is so limited, because we never see the vampire woman abused. We never see her being put in a position of people think she's weak and now she's strong. It's all funneled through this one other woman character who has her own troubles. And so that's where the idea of this slim town is, I think, hurtful to that kind of general message.
I don't think that muddles the idea at all. Not for me anyways.
Yeah. Go ahead, Bob.
I was just, you're right. Like she is, but nobody's like attacking the vampire. They're all like abusing this prostitute. Like, one of them like forces sexual favors from her, and the other, Hossein, forces her to take heroin, which are like terrible things. But like, I don't think that, the vampire avoiding those specific scenarios means that the message of this movie is muddled at all. She's just the watcher, basically. She watches all this go down and deals out punishment.
And here's the thing is, like, I'm not entirely sold on the idea of her as a punisher necessarily. Like, she is dangerous, and she, like, if you fuck with her, you're going to find out why that's a bad idea. But that said, like, to your point, looking at it that way, I don't see it quite so. Like, maybe if they had some other actors or whatever, fine. Yeah, they could do the same thing. But I don't think that she herself has to be put in a vulnerable position for us to get the idea that the only other woman in this is in an incredibly vulnerable position and is basically raped and has her money stolen from sex work by this piece of shit. Like, so we get the dichotomy. It's just not her specifically. And it's like, we wouldn't see Batman getting his ass kicked and then suddenly being like, gotcha.
Well,
like,
no, not just
like,
that.
You're an Avenger. You're watching this happen.
I think where it's confusing is we know we know the vampire is watching her, but we don't really know why. So for instance, like if there was not even against her, if there was another, so we have another woman, okay, at the party taking drugs. Okay. If somebody, tried to force themselves onto her, and then we see that the vampire attacks that person, then that would give it a little more scope. But because we know this vampire woman is watching this prostitute, but we don't really know why. Like, why is this vampire woman watching this prostitute? It doesn't have to do with a specific relationship. You know what I'm saying?
I think that this is like, she's a vampire. So theoretically, we don't know this. This is inference, So you have this woman who is a vampire and she has to feed on people, and she has disassociated herself from people. Even like the love interest, she shies away from because she's afraid of him finding out all the horrible things she's had to do, as de facto part of living for her. You know what I mean? But as part of her day to day, I don't think that she's trying to be a moral avenger necessarily. I think she's drawn to morality almost against her will, or almost like, there's just an innate pull that if you got to kill somebody and eat their blood to survive, you might as well make it the piece of shit who just raped a woman. You know what I mean? I think she's just naturally drawn to those things. And so when she sees this happen to this prostitute, she becomes emotionally invested, whether or not she would put it that way or would like to cop to that or not. That's how I read it, is like, she's invested in this person. And that's why she's been watching, because first of all, it's, she doesn't have to answer to anybody. She's just following her nose at night. She's hunting how she wants to hunt. And if she's hunting particularly bad guys that are abusive to women, then why not, follow this woman who is surrounded by abusive men all the time as part of her, unfortunate career situation. You know what I mean? I
think she puts herself in the role of watcher because of that scene with the boy where she literally threatens him, and the whole idea is putting this moral code on him out of fear. Like, I am watching you from the shadows. I am showing you that I'm dangerous, and if you're not a good boy, you will be punished. If that scene didn't exist, then maybe I would agree with you. I don't think she's this watcher in general. But see, I think that scene is there. And that's in a movie that's sparse with dialogue, that's the most we hear her speak almost directly. Most of the time she's not speaking directly to someone, or she is very sparse. So, I mean, I think that the director puts that directly in the movie to say, she's the watcher. She is morally, she's got this huge moral investment.
No, I think you're right. But what I'm saying isn't that that's not true. What I'm saying is that it's not something that she is necessarily, that's not her purpose. It has sort of de facto become her purpose, because she does feel things for people, whether or not she wants to, as much as she tries to disassociate. And also, I watch that scene as how many times have I seen a parent at Disney World, let's say, to another kid and say, hey, if you don't act like a good boy, we're not going to get ice cream. We're not going to this is, it is a heightened version of that, because she is a heightened figure. She's a mythological figure who has, basically become emotionally invested at that point in at least a few people's lives, and has, has reason to distrust people, but has enough moral fiber not to hurt a child. She scares the child horribly. And there's some ethical questions about that you can make. But the idea is that, she has a moral code, but I don't think that she necessarily sets out to. I think it's just kind of an offshoot of the person that she is. And it's almost avoided, because it can be such a person that's lived 1,000 years and has seen every, relationship go turn to dust, doesn't want to invest in people.
I can give some context here.
Okay.
So I think she eventually just fills this role because she rolls into town and sees that there's a need for it, I think. So the comic books that come with the movie that I purchased, there's two in there. The first one is sort of a more or less the movie that we watched. The second one is sort of a prequel to that. So you get kind of a sense of where the vampire comes from. She'd been alive for like, I think it's like 180 years. It's something like that. And she's like lived all over the earth. And she decides that she doesn't want to live anymore. She's lonely. You know, Randy, like you said, like every relationship she's ever had has fallen to dust. So she crawls out into the desert, which, you know, would be like the vampire's, you know, worst fear, you know. She decides that she's just going to like watch the sun rise one morning and die. But she chickens out and digs a big hole and covers herself in sand. And she does it like over and over and over and over again for like months, and like eventually just like makes it to the other side of the desert. And sees, you know, Bad City, and like rolls into town. And I think she just sort of like falls into this like Punisher type role, because the town is like full of terrible people taking advantage of each other, specifically women, which she would obviously identify with, and then just sort of steps into that role. I don't think that's like her whole mindset or anything. I think it's just sort of like happenstance, because the town is terrible. If that helps.
Yeah, I think it's a de facto. Like I don't think she's like set, like based on that certainly, but like that was my read, is that I don't think this person set out to be to avenge anything. She just has like emotions about what she's seeing and becomes invested in those things, and by virtue of that, you know, kind of becomes that role anyway.
So for some reason, I'm in a very like critiquey kind of mood, or like a devil's advocate kind of mood. So, okay, well, let me bring this up then. Okay, as a potential to that. And I think what's going on here is what I wish is that the other woman who's introduced had maybe more purpose, because after the party, we never see her again. So she's essentially in two scenes. And she really serves as...
You're talking about the rich woman?
Yeah, the rich woman. Yeah.
Okay.
She only serves really to kind of shape our main character. One, she gives a reason for him to be able to steal something to treat himself. And then the other one kind of to show his rejection and like how he's like kind of respectful as a drug dealer. But, okay. So if we have this kind of poverty theme then of that Randy brings up, of people are just trying to survive. Well, then you throw in this kind of, you know, Avenger type, or this kind of like Watcher type thing, to say she rolls into the city just to, you know, just to kind of enforce her punishment on the poor, destitute city of Bad City.
That's fair.
You know, like, okay, well, if that's her purpose, then even in the comic, she rolls in, Bad Cities fill these people. If we're using that rich woman to show like, okay, we're talking about poverty here. These are people that are surviving in some way. And then this like Watcher comes in and just then like you forces her punishment on these poor people of Bad City. Well, then that, you know, could be problematic in some ways.
Yeah, I think I could see your point on that. I think that the difference is that, like, okay, if you're a hunter and you're I completely understand your point. Like, I understand what you're making. I'm just saying that when you have these layers upon layers of different themes, like, this theme of like Bob like brought up was a great thing, because I think this rich woman is supposed to be of the family who deals in this oil. So the idea that, you know, the oil company itself is a vampire sucking, that was a great point that I didn't consider. I think he's on point with that. But I just think that then I think you're correct too, where then you superimpose this idea that, okay, that there's a layer of social class going on here, and you have to look at that because it's introduced, whether the director wanted to comment on that or not. It's there, it's prominent in the film, in its setting, in this one extra character that we see. Like, you have to see that because our character works for him, or works for this family. You know, he steals from them, he deals with her in this form of the drugs. You know, that's one of his main customers. So like, it has to exist in that way, whether the director wants it or not. And that's what I'm kind of like, I'm being like critical. I'm not saying that it's terrible, but I'm saying like, okay, well, let's look at this and let's pick it apart. No, I can see what you're saying. To me, it's just not like as strong of, I don't know. To me, I look at this situation, like the nuts and bolts of the situation is that this person isn't hunting in ballrooms or nightclubs, maybe in other vampire movies, but this person is wandering the streets, finding vulnerable and people that could go missing without causing a stir. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know, like to your point. Yeah. Like there's a comparison to be made between the blood sucking oil company and the blood sucking vampire feeding on the same populace, but at least hers is targeted, I guess. I don't know. Like I think that there's something fair to be said about that, but because this movie doesn't paint her as an angel, it's not trying to. Yeah. It's not at all trying to. So like the thing is, we are positing that she's an Avenger. I think that we like have to step back from that and realize that she is just reacting to a situation in a way that makes sense to her. I don't necessarily think that, I don't think that like the fact that she like sucked the blood out of a homeless dude, like to me speaks to, okay, somebody trying to survive by, feeding off, something that, if she can get in trouble for feeding off people, this is the person she's least likely to get in trouble for feeding off of. It's like, it's a pragmatism thing that sucks. I get it, yeah. You know what I mean? I don't know. So I think there's something that, like you could talk about with that. And I don't think you're wrong to say it or anything, but I don't know, like if we do go to the actual text of the movie, and again, this movie is built on the text, at least from the words of the director and the writer, like, I don't think that necessarily comes to bear. I think that the context of the oil company sucking the blood of these people, kind of callously and not giving anything in return and not being able to connect with even its most decent person, the stalwart young man who may be a thief, but he's a thief with a heart of gold. Like they can't accept that. She doesn't want anything to do with that. But this other vampire can. This other vampire who spends time with them and who doesn't, see them as the help is just, I don't know. It's a little murky if you want to get too
and that's
down
what I was saying. It is kind of muddled. Yeah.
True to life. We're all just reacting to the fucked up
thing
shit
is like I don't.
us.
This thing is like it's very reactive.
Yeah, exactly. and I'm not even saying like these are necessarily negative things. I'm just kind of calling them what they are. Like I think it's muddled, and through like this discussion and analysis, Randy just came to, oh no, it's kind of murky. It's like, yeah, I mean that's what I was saying. It's kind of muddled. I'm not even saying that's necessarily. I think it's murky
like because we're trying to ascribe like archetypal roles on characters who are mostly defined in my mind by not their archetype, but by breaking their archetype. And so like being actual people that don't exist for the sole purpose of being X role. Yeah. And, I think that like anytime you have characters
except
that
they
exist
do
outside
though,
of
because like that pimp, he kind of just serves that role to be the piece of shit.
He's not the main characters though.
He's not. Talking about the main two. But I'm saying that also exists in this movie, that there are people serve that X role, and I think that you have like the key one, like piece of shit. There's no gray area in this guy. He just sucks, and he's there
villains
to be
and
punished.
Imperfect heroes in this movie. If you want to put it in heroes and villains context,
I don't necessarily.
No, I'm just saying, like if that's the discussion, which like if we're talking about her as an Avenger, which I think that we would, I think that we have, like if we see her as the Punisher of this film. Yeah. Then I guess
there's
like there's no Captain America.
Each time one discussion point comes up, it's like, oh, it's true to life. There's a lot of gray area, and it's like, yeah, that is true, and we see that in one character, the boy, but in another character, that's not the case, where this guy is really not a gray character. He just serves the X role to be the piece of shit to be punished. And so that's where I think this room lends itself to some critiques, because some things we say are true. Yes, it's true to life with some characters, but with others, it's actually very black and white, and they serve a very specific role, specifically to be a piece of shit and then to be punished.
Yeah, but pieces of shit do exist. Like that is true life.
Absolutely. Sure. Absolutely. I'm just saying in the context of this movie,
like he doesn't just say like have to contain like I think that the more evil that you do as a character, obviously you're going to be seen more as a villain. But when you have a character that does some evil things, but also does some pretty redemptive things, and you're led to, sort of see them as multifaceted, that's, that is the story. Like in some ways, like this isn't, I don't think it's like outside of the scope of reality to have a drug dealer, pimp, piece of shit character by any means.
Unfortunately, it's not. We got to land the plane, though. It's time. Let's go ahead and rate this thing. If you guys have anything else to mention, feel free to do show. Out of 5, though.
Do show.
Out of 5, Juice, kick us off. How do you feel about A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night?
I ended up in the role of de facto, like, it feels like I'm Randy on the fly, but I'm actually not. I actually just found
Welcome to hell, buddy.
I actually found this movie quite interesting and quite likable this time, which was very nice for me because, like I said, I've just carried around the idea that I didn't really care for this film. And this time I really did. I found it very interesting. I found the cinematography quite beautiful and the setting interesting. I liked the mix of these very specific flavors. Choosing to make it black and white, I think, was a good choice. And putting it in this setting, I usually don't care for the desert, but I found it interesting because I thought it added a lot of just kind of unspoken subtext. This almost ghost town of a city, this pile of dead bodies, but yet this still rager of a party where people are taking X and stuff. It was interesting. The music choices were great. I did kind of like that spin on, the girl walks home alone at night, and yet she is the predator. I'm not like, it's not the worst thing in the world, but I do think it is a bit of a missed opportunity, especially to call this movie The Girl Who Walks Home Alone at Night, to not see that flipped on its head directly, where, someone follows this girl home alone at night and where they would be the predator, then become the prey. I think that's a bit of a missed opportunity. It's not the worst thing in the world, but I think it's a missed opportunity as a critique. There were moments that I found quite endearing and felt like a good kind of chemistry. The skateboard scene, or the one where the dudes we didn't get to talk about it, but when the dude is wandering home alone when he's kind of on X, and they have their moment and it becomes a skateboard scene, I felt like this is a great little picture of those moments that happen that feel like they have a lot of weight in life, even though they're in a regular place where nothing extraordinary is particularly happening. And yet there is something substantial happening for individual people. I thought that was a great capture of that kind of moment where they end up together. He goes back to her apartment, and I just felt like there was a great vibe there. I like the ending. I thought them driving away, that song playing, and the acceptance of kind of what they've both done and what each other has done was romantic in this kind of broken kind of way. I don't know. It was beautiful in a sense. And I thought she did a great job generally capturing some very vulnerable moments in a beautiful, broken kind of way. Overall, I actually did dig on this film, even though I've been quite critical. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5.
All right, 4 out of 5. Randy, how do you feel?
Yeah, I also like this movie. I think that, to Justin's point, like, I don't know. I think that the fact that this filmmaker was focused on just telling a story and not necessarily getting in the weeds of, commenting on social situations outside of what needs to exist for the story to exist and for it to feel like real or correct or, honest. I think that to me makes a lot of what you've brought to the table, like, less important overall. I think, to me, like, you can't, like, when we talk about applying like the Watcher or the Punisher sort of thing to me, that's us bringing that to the table more than anything else.
The comic, and Bob putting it in context, the comic does that too. To be fair.
In what way? Like,
he said, like, she strolls into Bad City and realizes like there's a bunch of bad people there, and is that
a conscious thing, Bob, or is that like? I mean, I took that to mean like she just like saw bad shit happening. I was like, well, there's my next victim because fuck him. Like,
yeah, I mean, that's how I read it. I mean, I guess you can interpret it however you want, but in the comic book, she does the same thing where she like finds the little boy and like tells him to be good, and then finds, drug dealers and shit and kills them. So I think like she just decides that she has a will to live and rolls into town. And if she's going to live, she might as well kill bad people to do so. I think that's about as deep as it goes, really.
Yeah.
Well, in any case, like, I mean, that's neither here nor there for my point. My point is just that, like, whatever themes are brought to the table have a lot more to do with what we are seeing in the movie than anything else, like, be outside of, like, the scope of the actual nuts and bolts story. I think that, like, you don't go into Austin Powers thinking, like, Austin Powers isn't a feminist film, but you could look at it that way. You could make an argument for it. You could make an argument for any movie being any kind of film. You can look through it through any lens and see it fail, succeed, or whatever. But its failure, Austin Powers' failure as a feminist film, is not Austin Powers' fault, because that is not the film they were trying to make. So I don't know. Like, I don't see it as a ding necessarily that these themes that we are seeing, these potential like threads of interesting like societal things, that they fall short. I don't think that's a ding, because that's not the primary function of this filmmaker right in this film. That aside, like, this movie just looks fucking brilliant, looks great. It's a visually amazing film. And all it is just black and white with just like really fucking great blocking, great contrast. Like nothing, everything feels over like the white over white, and then doesn't at the same time. Like, there's richness in the visuals of this, and the soundtrack is just the same, and it lets the characters sort of live and breathe and lets you live with them and lets them sort of like visually tell the story for you, rather than lay out every intonation, every plot point, everything else. Yeah, you can see the David Lynch in this, but it's a lot more clean cut, certainly. I don't know. I think that it's got interesting things going on, but I don't necessarily want to factor that in because of the intention of the filmmaker in this case. I just think that it's a really lovely film. I think it ends beautifully. Like you said, like, it is extremely romantic and quite fortuitous that this is on the week of Valentine's Day. Cause it's about people accepting each other's faults, as immense as they might be, because they find comfort with each other, period. That is what love is in most regards, is just finding comfort in somebody despite, a circumstance, despite your shortcomings, whatever, like, just finding that together. That goes beyond, infatuation to what I would call love. So I think that's all really beautiful and great. I think that you could probably, I wish that there had been a bigger swing at a societal comment in this, because it seems like it's so ripe for the picking. I think, like Justin said, like, that's the missed opportunity I want to see, is something, I want this to be a little bit clearer in terms of having something to say underneath the surface, even though that I'm like, I don't know. It's not trying to do that, and that's not its primary function, but I wish it was a stronger secondary function, maybe. So all that said, I think that this movie is maybe just a little slower than I usually like, but overall, I think it's to its benefit. I'm going to give it a 4 as well.
Bob, we've railroaded
you. Did you give Yabos points back?
I did a deep breath and I thought, oh my Lord, I forgot Yabos. I think
your code is falling apart.
I know.
It's almost like you exist in a gray area.
I think pre this movie, I wanted to end it at 4 with the Yabos, but since I'm a man of my code, I almost just have to accept it and give it a 4.5. That I didn't do it properly. I wanted to end it at a 4 with the Yabos, but what are you going to do?
So it is now a 4.5.
So
sure, let's give it that's too high for my general liking, but I have to be a man of the code and give it.
Okay.
Sometimes you just got to close your eyes and give it.
Sometimes you just got to give in to
All
the
right.
Yabos. Bob, out of 5, you've had to listen to us bitch and bitch. Give us your opinion.
It's true. I love this movie. I think there's a lot of thematic layers going on, as well as like stylistic and visual layers that you can pick apart on multiple rewatches. We already talked about sort of like the parallels between like, mega corporations sucking the earth dry and this vampire sucking the town dry. Drug addiction as well. I love like the subversion of this lonely woman just kicking ass and having like full-blown agency. It turns out everybody should actually be afraid of her. I think that's a wonderful subversion. There's also like some influences of like spaghetti westerns in here. There's a lot of like I get Ennio Morricone vibes, I guess, with some of the score happening. Obviously, like old school vampire movies, Nosferatu, and things like that. And I don't know if like comic books were an influence of this or not, but watching this and reading the comic books that came with it, like Sin City comes to mind first and foremost. I don't know if the filmmaker was influenced by those or not. I got to think she was at least a little bit. Definitely David Lynch vibes. The cinematography, first and foremost, is fucking insanely beautiful. The opening of this movie where we follow Arash just like walking around Bad City, and he walks over the bridge that goes over that ditch that's just filled with bodies. And as he does so, like the music that's playing behind him like slows down to a crawl and sounds like very just ominous and like disturbing. I think it's like such a wonderful way to start this movie. I love it so much. Also, in the comic books, there's like a scene where the girl, the vampire, she like kills somebody and like rolls them into the ditch. So I don't know if we're supposed to assume that every corpse in that ditch is a victim of hers, and maybe that's why the city is so barren. She's just been doing overtime, putting in.
Was
the
that
hours.
her that did that?
In the comic book? Yeah, I don't know that it actually happens in the movie. I don't think it does.
I thought when they killed. Oh no.
Somebody does dump a body.
Yeah,
in the film,
somebody
but I don't think it was her.
I don't think it was her. Anyways.
Okay.
Definitely in the book though. The soundtrack is fucking baller. I love it. Justin, you already mentioned this a little bit, like when the dude's tripping on X and she ends up pushing him home on the skateboard is like extremely endearing. My favorite scene in the movie is what follows that, where she puts on a record and he like slowly stands up and like spins the little disco ball, and it's this like long drawn out scene of like several minutes where they just have this like very slow embrace, and like they don't kiss, like he kind of bares his neck to her and she doesn't bite his neck. Nothing really happens, but it's still like so pregnant with emotion. And I fucking love that scene, man. It's the first time I watched this movie, when that scene happened, I was like, holy shit, like this is really, really something I'm vibing with here.
Yeah, it was nice.
Also, that song is called Death by a band called White Lies, and you should listen to it a lot. It's a really, really solid song. This is also a Spectravision movie. Shouts outs to Elijah Wood. This wouldn't happen without Elijah Wood.
Spectravision.
Were you watching Spectravision? With what's his name? Buddy Whackett. I also, something we didn't mention is like this is spoken in Farsi, which is... So it is an Iranian filmmaker, but she was born in Britain and grew up in California. She does not speak Farsi fluently. I think it's kind of a punk rock move to have the characters in this speak Iranian, though. This movie is like the first Iranian horror movie ever made, and like given the context of this movie, where like our main character is wearing a chador, and she's like has full blown agency and does whatever the fuck she wants. It's just like I think it's like a really smart thing, and like considering what happens in this movie, how it would just like not go over in Iran, I would imagine. It's just like kind of is a little bit political in a way that I'm sure she didn't intend, as we already discussed. But I like that aspect of it, I guess. I think that's basically everything. As far as like cons for me, maybe the ending could be a little tighter or like a little more dynamic. But at the end of the day, it's a love story, and they end up together, and they're both like struggling with the lives that they have, with the cards they've been dealt, and they choose each other in the end. I think it's like a beautiful way to end the movie that's not like super convoluted. And also the cat in that car at the end. Cat's killing it, man. The cat is...
I love that.
He's a great actor. The cat is a 5-star actor. I don't know. I have very little complaints about this. I think regarding what the filmmaker was trying to do, I think she nailed it. And my enjoyment of this movie is also through the roof. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5.
All right. In the words of Vincent. I was going to bring up the cat, though. I completely forgot. But like, that cat is literally sitting between them at the end of this movie.
Yeah.
It is literally the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
As far as this movie is concerned.
Does a good job.
Him and that is the
dog,
baggage they're carrying with them.
Yeah.
The cat and the dog actor from The Thing need to, team up and make a movie.
Is there an Animal Actors Award? I hope there is.
I don't know. They both kill it, though.
So that's going to put our aggregate at a 4.5. Let's go ahead and jump into our Rotten Tomatoes segment and see what the critics and users think about A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night.
Certified fresh to death.
All right, here we go. This is the Rotten Tomato segment. If you are new, what this is as follows. I'm going to have these two gentlemen guess what the critics and user score are on RottenTomatoes.com for this film. That's an aggregate score, so it's between 0 and 100%. I'm going to start with Bob today and our critic score. Now, there are 135 critic scores on the nose. So, with that number in mind and knowing it's an aggregate, where do you think that the critics fall on the spectrum, Bob?
I think this is a bit of a critical darling, if I had to say. I'm going to go relatively high. I think I'm going to go with like an 80. I'll take an 80.
Juice, what about you?
I've said it many, many times. I think a foreign language film directed by a woman that's black and white, critics are going to cream themselves all over this movie. It's going to be stupidly high. Bob took an 80, so I'll take the comic Project 86, please.
86. Okay. Well, pretty good guesses, but you really should have just gone all in on your thesis there, Soju. It's a 96%.
Ooh, call him like a CM.
96%. Honestly, I don't think that's unfair. Like the thing, considering that it's an aggregate score, I mean,
is quite high.
It's an aggregate. How many people out of those 135 do you think is
levels?
Jurassic Park is higher than that, I think. But yeah, but you got to think like they don't have to think this movie as good.
Sure, no, I'm just.
They just have to think it's a good movie.
That's quite
in order
high.
To be counted in the positive.
Yeah,
there.
this movie has more critiques than that is reflecting.
Okay,
I think this has.
I'm not sure I agree, but okay.
Okay. That's quite high.
I'm sorry, Juice. We're going to start with you this time. We have the audience score coming up. There are over 10,000 of these, so keep that in mind.
I think it'll drop it. I think it will drop it. And for similar reasons, foreign language film, black and white, slow as shit. But I still think it's going to be high. So I'll take it a modest, the 75.
75. Okay, Bob, how about you?
75. I'm going to $1 up with a 76, please.
Oh, you dirty dog. Well, I got to give it to somebody. We got ourselves a ringy dingy here. This is a 75%.
Damn!
In the audience.
Oh,
75.
How you sweep with a ringy ding? Oh my lord!
So there you go, Juice.
Wow.
Congrats on your big victory.
I got too excited about that. I got way too excited.
You did. Yeah, you did. You jumped. You literally jumped out of your seat. Let's go to the critics' consensus. It reads as follows. A girl walks home alone at night, blends conventional elements into something brilliantly original, and serves as a striking calling card for writer-director Ana Lily Amirpour. Excuse me. Yeah, that seems fair. I think so.
Yeah.
There's also, we didn't even really discuss, but like, the Western elements in this are very clear to me. Like this movie weirdly reminds me of anime, specifically Cowboy Bebop. It doesn't have like the same musical cues, kind of needle drops as that show does, and obviously it's not sci-fi, but like, I don't know. Like the Western aspect of it really strikes that, and the visual like blocking
one interesting thing I will say, someone who generally doesn't like films set in the desert, where that's just generally a big turnoff for me. One thing that helped this movie was giving it those like the music choices to make it kind of a spaghetti Western feel. I was like, okay, well, I mean, I don't know. That made the pill easier to swallow for me.
I don't like sand.
Wow.
It's coarse.
Yeah,
rough and
that's me.
It gets everywhere.
Yeah, sad goth boy Soju. That's me.
Hates the beat.
Last a minute in Arizona.
But anyway, so I thought that was smart. Yeah, to jump off of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's read some negative reviews because they can be funnier typically. Okay. Here's one that should.
Is it small dick energy?
What? No, it's not. It's not that. Although, you never know. These are audience reviews, so I guess this is an audience review. Artsy fartsy at its quote best. Nicely filmed and with some interesting choices of music, but with no plot to speak of and several scenes that just keep dragging on. Yawn.
Why aren't they fucking by now?
Why don't we see some penetration in this movie?
What to jump off of Rob? That scene was great. One thing I liked from like the cinematography standpoint was the side shot where we can see her. Doesn't she get like I think she gets like a little grin on her face, but he's standing behind her, so there would be no way for him to see. I don't know. There was like a great vibe moment. I like that scene a lot too.
So here's one more negative review from an actual reviewer. Let's see. A movie so slow that in the end, all I wanted was for it to be over.
It's slow.
All right.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's you cannot argue it's not slow. So I got to give them that much. But
that's true.
You're a fucking movie critic, so maybe
have some patience.
You just can't appreciate art like the Straight Chilling Crew.
I mean, yeah, we are the most artistic motherfuckers in town.
69 dudes.
They're super introspective and just really, sensitive.
For all the visual ambition, this doesn't add up to anything terribly substantial.
Not terribly substantial.
Well, it must be terrible in its substance.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the end of the segment.
Nice. Nice negative for Randy.
And now I am done. All right, let's jump into some trivia.
It's totally time for trivia.
All right, gentlemen, I got some trivia for the movie here. There was an Indiegogo campaign that launched July 2012 to fund the feature-length version of this film. Amirpour eventually, she started off with a short and gained some traction with that. She ended up raising about $55,000 to finish the feature-length film. Amirpour, regarding the mythology of the vampire, she stated, "A vampire is so many things. A serial killer, a romantic, a historian, a drug addict. There's sort of all of these things rolled into one." And I think the movie that we get definitely like encapsulates all of that, highlights all of those things. Amirpour has also stated, if there is anything political in the movie, it's the character by the name of Rockabilly, because it's not okay to be gay in Iran. So Rockabilly is a character that like just kind of dances around with a balloon. Like we don't really see the character.
That's the most Lynchian character.
Absolutely is.
That was interesting. Yeah, I forgot about that, honestly.
Yeah, it's like set dressing almost, but like it's the way it's choreographed and filmed is like very beautiful. But I don't know if it serves a purpose outside of that. It's just beautiful.
That's again like one of those things that reminds me of Cowboy Bebop. It's like in that show, you'll see those old guys in every couple episodes hanging out playing cards and complaining. Yeah. It's like just like you said, set dressing, but also kind of characters or side characters, the way that Simpsons characters used to be before they all had to have full backstories to support fucking 80 years of storylines.
Yeah. There's a Belgian band called Blackheart Rebellion, and they created an alternative soundtrack for this movie. They performed it live several times with a film screening in the background, and they released that record in 2018. You can pick that.
I like that idea. That's a fun idea.
I've seen people do. I mean, Sunray and Jacksonville did that with a couple of movies.
Yeah,
for a while there, didn't they?
Even Bob, it was fun. Like Bob talked about it when we did Caligari, where people like somebody was commissioned. That was a silent film, so I like this kind of idea of doing it with a more modern film. Give
me modern music on a silent film, and I will be enraptured.
DJ Spooky, right, Bob? I believe that's who it was.
DJ.
Yeah,
Spooky.
I think that is correct. Yeah. Look at that.
Whoa,
Steel Trap.
Yeah.
The Saeed, the pimp character in this movie, was sort of based on the real life person who goes as Ninja from the band Die Antwoord. Is sort of like who Amirpour.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, that's. I guess that's not a compliment. I don't know, but she does love the band apparently. So,
maybe she's into Bad Boys.
My God, I'm looking at images of this particular band, and yep.
Wait, what was the name? I gotta look it up now too.
Die Antwoord.
Die Antwoord. He goes by Ninja, which is something else.
There's some hair choices happening with this band.
This is the first vampire story to be set in a Middle
Eastern setting.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Oh no.
He's got like a riff-raff vibe kicking.
Yeah, he really does.
Oh no. Okay. Anyways, maybe I'll check this band out later.
This is I Think You Freaky. I know this song.
Oh, me too.
Is it on your sex playlist, Randy?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I like you a lot. I think you're freaky and I like you a lot.
I do not like this band.
No, it's not really
same.
for me.
But I do know that song, yeah.
That
is one note being sung.
The tattoo that is on Saeed's scalp says Jakish, which apparently translates to pussy stretcher.
I was curious what that said. Randy, did you get a spin take?
Very close.
I saw behind the scenes, Randy. You happen to take a swing.
And the light to the senses. Is it, my friend?
Okay. I'm really curious. Good trivia, Bob.
Yeah, so Amirpour had to get her mother to do the calligraphy on his skull to make sure that it was all spelled out correctly. And apparently, like pussy stretcher or pussy puller is what it translates to, which is like a slang term for like a pimp or something like that. The director herself.
I love that her mom had to do it.
Yeah. Hey mom, I
got a request for you. Yeah. Hey mom, you got a few minutes? Can you write pussy stretcher on my friend?
just do it. The director appears in the movie herself. She's the girl wearing skeleton makeup at the big dance scene.
Oh, okay. I noticed that. She's the one that she also got some drugs.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
And, the last bit of trivia I have here is that Amirpour in real life is a huge fan of LSD. She digs it.
Hell yeah. Blame Hoffman, baby.
Hell yeah, brother. Yeah.
Brother.
I don't know what death is.
That's
blending some different characters there.
Hell yeah,
brother.
I'm gonna drop that shit and watch Gandhi on VHS.
Fuck yeah, brother. That's
Hulk Hogan loves this movie and LSD.
Well, let's just not even talk about Hulk Hogan.
I don't. Yeah,
that's.
Let's not go for libel today.
Yeah, that's all we got for trivia. Let's talk Cooter of the Week.
Straight chillin'. Cooter of the Week.
What is a cooter and why do we hunt them?
Ooh, Cooter's character type in a straight chillin' exclusive. I was excited about our discussion this week. Cooter has to hit 3 of these 5 points to be considered a Cooter. We want the Cooter with the most points. We're going to get some points this week. Thank you. That is so appropriate.
I love that you held on to that, Randy.
Me too. So
got 'em all, baby.
The 5 points of Cooterdom are manipulation, smug arrogance, sexual deviance, overall look and attire.
Wow.
And overall patheticness. Boys, we got a strong, we might have a couple Cooters this week, but we've got we got a strong candidate for King Cooter. Who do we want to talk about first? It's
the pussy stretcher himself.
Let's talk about
I think he's freaky and I don't like it.
Yeah. All right. Pussy puller, Mr. Was it Saeed?
Saeed, yeah.
Okay. Oh my lord. Let's start with look and attire because we don't get to do. He's rocking one that we talked about Chavs a couple weeks ago. He's rocking the Chav look. He's got the well, also I think the shitty tattoo is really kind of set off the look and attire.
The goatees for me, where it's like starts just at the edge of the lip and goes all the way down like Hulk Hogan. It's just so nothing thin. Under the nose at all.
So thin. Why is it so thin?
I don't know. I'm not one. I shouldn't be critiquing anybody's facial hair, really, but
everybody should.
It's pretty bad. That man literally looks like he has tusks.
Damn. I'm trying to pull him up too to get like a good sense of him. But I was like taking note of some tattoos. He's got like a Pac-Man, I think, on the side of his neck.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah,
and when he takes off his shirt and does his dance, which we can bring up in another point. But there's just so many like shitty tattoos all over his body.
God damn it, Ralph, get out of here.
Yeah, he's got some like finger tattoos too that said something really stupid that I can't remember exactly. I took so many notes this week. I didn't even look at them. Oh my God. I'm so unprofessional.
Doesn't he have the word sex tattooed on his neck as well? Just
sex. Yeah, right on his neck. Yeah. Sex. I wrote sex tattoo in his neck. Laugh out loud. So many shitty tattoos. Pac-Man. Okay, I guess that's all I. Lifting the weights. Oh yeah, when he goes over,
does a line, lifts some weights.
He's just like lifting the weights. Like his little like seduction methods.
Very pathetic to me.
I mean, that's gonna get any girl in your bed,
dude. The tiger poster.
Yeah, his house looked like, it reminded me of the drug dealer in Boogie Nights. The fucking, do you remember that scene where they're listening to like Jesse's Girl and they have the guy throwing firecrackers
Actually, I've never
everywhere?
Seen Boogie Nights.
Oh, please go watch Boogie Nights immediately. It's fucking great. Yeah,
he's
anyway,
a drummer. Bomb.
He has a drum set
in good company.
It's set up in a manner in which you could not play it, which means he is not a drummer. He just has drums.
Oh, okay, Bob. Getting a little defensive of the category.
I gotta make it very clear here.
Can we do looking at our empatheticness for his like the lifting weight shit? That was cracking me up, and the drums, the faux drum set apparently.
Yeah. I just think like maybe this is a little nebulous, but anybody who acts like he does to other people, like especially if you're like, especially his, who the woman he's pimping.
Yeah,
like, I don't know, man.
Well, I know
that's stock standard, but I mean, yeah, it's definitely that. Regardless,
for sure. Yeah.
But it's also like just so fucking pathetic to me. These guys that do this.
Yeah,
preying on elderly people is pathetic. I think we can give him patheticness for that.
That's true.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Also, he did actually technically stretch a pussy in this when he held the cat up, like to check his gender.
That cat, I want that. Yeah, cat. Give me that cat.
It's a fat and lovely cat, and I want.
Yeah. Looking at Tyre, that just his whole everything he wears, all of his tattoos, and his entire apartment. Damn.
Yeah,
and then oof.
He really is like a fucking.
He's a pretty
CSI bit character or something.
Smug arrogance is through the roof on this guy.
Oh yeah, taking that dude's car and go into like picking on the like poor, the guy's like, you made him a junkie or whatever, and he's just, I don't know, he's just got this fucking shitty shit. And the same
but
thing
at the same time
with the woman, like. It's one thing to be a pimp, but the way the smug arrogance in which he treats her, like you're nothing, and you're old. Oh, how old are you? 30. Oh, you're getting old, and like blow me, get out of my car. You're short on money. Like what a piece.
He called her a hag. It's like you just got a blowjob from that person.
Smug arrogance.
You fucking prick. But yeah, also like to go back, like the idea that I don't know. Patheticness might be in a little bit of question because he is also, people are terrified of this man, and it seems like with good reason. So, in terms of a willingness to enact violence, I think that's on the table. In that way, he's not pathetic, but he's pathetic in other ways.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess the way he was trying to seduce this woman came off as very pathetic to me. Like, look,
it would not have worked on a woman that didn't want to suck his blood.
Yeah, like, look, let me take off my shirt and dance for you. Oh, let me lift these weights. Oh, look, check out my tiger poster. That was pretty pathetic.
I love
tiger poster.
I love in that scene how like she. In the car, like the prostitute like sucks his finger and then gives him a blowjob, and then like the reverse of that, the next scene, like she bites his finger off and then crams it into his own mouth. Like, fuck yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that was some catharsis for sure.
Yeah,
let's talk about the others though.
This has to be.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I mean, we can talk about others, but I feel like
I think this dude hits every point in some capacity. Maybe he's not full scale on all of them. Maybe not full scale pathetic, but like he hits every point.
I think he's going to be our king, and he's certainly going to be in lockup. But I think he might have some company in the jail cell.
All right, let's go with our boy Hussein.
Yeah, Hussein, my man. Like it's pathetic. Like the everything that he does that's so terrible is because he is so pathetically like attached to stuff. Like, and it's like, honestly, like it just made me sad because this is like, that's kind of the truth of addiction is you become somebody that nobody would ever recognize in pursuit of something that, you know, nobody needs to pursue to their own detriment. Well, it's just like, you know, he threw away his whole life, his son. He was perfectly willing to, like, once he got his medicine, quote unquote, and his son was kicking him out and was fed up with him. He was like, oh, okay. Yeah. And then he grabs the cat and fucking leaves. He puts it and takes it as like, well, I'm a little ashamed, but now I'm going to go have a good time. It's like, fuck you. And then he forces this woman to do heroin with her. Literally ties her up. That shit is straight up evil in my book. So I would even say, he's emotionally manipulative. You know, like even his sons take care of him and actually like making him food and shit, trying to help him get over his drug addiction. And he's like calling out like to his dead wife, like, oh, look at our son. Look what he does to me. He treats his own father like this. So like manipulation high, like, you know, that's tough for any kid to have to take care of your like that. And he almost, you know, got the car taken away. I'd be like, get the fuck out of here a long time ago. So yeah, so like manipulation is high. Arrogance might be a tougher sell, but I think it's like honestly behaving that way is like it's almost like the amount of denial you have to be in is almost like propped up by inflating self. There was arrogance.
There was a good moment of arrogance. I think it could come off as another type of manipulation, but I didn't realize this at the time, but I realized it after the fact. When we see the woman, the prostitute, she's just kind of like walking around and he's following her around. I didn't quite realize that was him at that point, but it was. And he's saying like, she's like, once you find some money, you know, I'll give you attention. And he's like, do you know how much I've given you? You know, don't you know how, you know, much I've spent on you in the past? I found that like to be quite arrogant. Like you owe me, you know, like some attention you owe me. Like, I found that quite arrogant.
I agree. I think that look and attire, he probably gets a pass because it's just, he's really just wearing whatever he's wearing. It's just normal stuff. Normal-ish seeming anyway. So
manipulation, sexual deviancy. I mean, he's paying for sex. I would note that as a deviance.
I'm a little split on that, but just the way that he treats her is certainly deviant.
Yeah.
I think the look and attire is the only one that he falls short of in my opinion.
He's super pathetic and manipulative. Those are his biggest ones, I think.
For sure.
A little bit of smug arrogance.
Of course.
Yeah.
So I think he's going to just keep old Riff Raff some company. Because I think he's
share a cell. Yeah.
What do you think, Bob? You in agreement?
For sure. I think Persian Riff Raff takes the cake.
Yeah.
He's our
one more.
All right, we got him.
Since we're talking cooters and we're talking attire, I don't think he's necessarily a cooter or whatever. But the Dracula costume that kid wore to the party, like that was pretty. Like to have that,
I liked it.
No, I liked it too. But like when he's like, "I'm Dracula" to the actual vampire, that was pretty fun. Like that was a fun moment.
Yeah. I like that he signed his note Dracula. I was like, that's cute. Like they had a cute, like meet cute situation.
Yeah, they did.
Being a couple vampires people.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right.
Continue.
We got him. Let's go ahead and talk about what we've been watching this week.
Hey, gang. What you been watching?
Randy, what you been watching?
So I only watched a few things this week. Randomly, our boy Drew, resident serial killer, former host of this show, reached out to me the other day and suggested I watch a show on BBC called Ghosts. Are you guys familiar with a show called Ghosts?
I'm not.
No.
So it's an English show, obviously, on BBC that is on HBO. Max. It might be. I don't know if it's on like. Anyway, it's on HBO of some description, some plan that I have, and it's sort of in the vein of What We Do in the Shadows, where the plot is basically that this couple inherits a giant haunted mansion filled with ghosts, and we see the ghosts pretty much up front, and they're like. They can't be seen. They're just like, I don't know, they had an old lady living there until recently, and they're all from different eras of time, and they interact with each other and they make jokes or whatever. And then the lead of the movie of the couple, the woman whose name I'm forgetting, she has a near-death experience and has to go to the hospital, and then she starts seeing ghosts, basically. So she is able to see them. They're able to interact with her, and I've only gotten like 3 or 4 episodes deep. It's only I think 8 episodes, so that's pretty deep, actually. But I don't know. I like it pretty good so far. It's pretty funny. It's like kind of low stakes. You know what I mean? There's not, it's sort of, again, it just reminds me of watching What We Do in the Shadows. It's got that horror element, but it's very pithy and wordplay and I don't know, low stakes humor. It's a lot of fun. Watched 1 episode so far of the new show on Netflix called Murderville, which if you guys haven't heard of, that is a Will Arnett led show where it's basically a mystery that can be solved about who killed X in a fictional situation. But they always have a guest host that is completely without a script and is 100% improvising. So it's very improv heavy. It's pretty funny so far. I watched the Conan O'Brien episode as the first one. So Conan is the guest, and they just put him in insane improv situations where he's trying to question or interrogate a woman while eating extremely spicy food and shit. Put him in really ridiculous situations. I don't know. I haven't gotten a full feel of the show yet, and I'm hoping that it kind of it ramps up a little bit more and gets a little bit funnier, but it's improv, which is famously not the most consistent form of comedy. So give it a little bit of leeway. And I like what I saw. So those fucking Will Arnett is a pretty great improv guy. And so is Conan, honestly. He just, when he's running the show, it's a little bit easier for him, I think.
You know who's not a great improv guy? Marshawn Lynch, who's the next guest.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that makes perfect sense.
I think I watched the first 3 or 4 episodes of that, and the success of the episode, I think, fully lies on the shoulders of the guest who's doing the improv. Conan, I thought was pretty hilarious. Marshawn Lynch does fine, but he's just he's a football player. He's not an improv guy, and you can tell. It kind of is
makes
what
sense.
it is. Yeah.
I mean, they do have I think it's a pretty stacked cast. He's definitely the outlier though, from what I've seen. It's him and Sharon Stone isn't really an improv person, obviously. Yeah. But then you have Kumail Nanjiani and Ken Jeong, who are both great at improv.
Yeah. Actors.
So. Yeah. Well, yeah, they're actors first of all.
I like the idea of that show though. It's a pretty neat idea. I overall dug it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like if somebody took a Second City stage show and just put $1 million budget on it and put it on the air. Netflix. I like it. And then last but not least, my last thing is I watched a documentary on HBO as well called The Forever Prisoner, which just came out. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but it's about a terrorist dude named Abu Zubaydah. Zubaydah. Okay, I'm sorry. Anyway, this guy who basically was the person that they designed the quote unquote enhanced interrogation techniques for.
Oh God.
In the heels of 9/11, he is still in Guantanamo Bay, despite having almost having no day in court or anything like that, and nothing he's not a good guy. Let's be clear. The shit he did was not good. He was not a good person, but he was basically the poster child of. He was supposed to be number 3 in command of Al Qaeda, and he just wasn't. He told them that because he was being fucking tortured, but I don't know. And it literally they've unredacted a bunch of names and information about this. So they go over it. They interview people that designed this program and show their career paths, which is fucking depressing if you want to get into that. And anyway, it's just a really it's a draining thing to watch, especially as somebody who didn't really I was too young to really keep track of that when it was happening. So it was fresh for me, a lot of it. And I just, man, it's a lot of coming to grips with shit. It's heavy material, and it's extremely distressing what, even the quote highly principled, supposedly, country that we live in is willing to do in pursuit of justice, political interests, whatever else. It's very cut and dry to me that it's some pretty evil shit happening for some pretty dubious reasons. So, yeah, happy note.
Oh, Guantanamo Bay.
Yeah.
Juice, what have you been watching?
Dude, life's been too crazy. I've been watching much new. So standard, still working through Simpsons and Great British Bake Off. I switched seasons on that one though. Season 6. But the only new thing that I've been watching was I wanted to, since I had a more positive reaction to this film, I wanted to go back and watch The Bad Batch, because in a similar fashion, I watched The Bad Batch actually with Old Bish and Bob in the theater at Sunray and hated it. And it's on Netflix right now. And I did not anticipate it being 2 hours, so I didn't allow enough time to finish it. But getting through a decent amount of it, I still do not like that movie as far as I could tell. It's also set in the desert. The cast is stacked. It's got this crazy cast, but it's set in the desert. It's not black and white this time. It's still slow as shit. Still music choices that I don't think are as good. So it's got a similar kind of vibe, but I'm still not liking it. I will finish it, but I don't know. So I really don't know where this director could go in the future. She's got
another film.
She's got a third one that's, Bob was saying, was making the festival rounds right now.
Is that what's happening? I was wondering about that because I didn't hear a word about it.
It's called Mona Lisa and the Blood Moon, and hopefully we'll be able to watch it later this year, but it's hitting festivals.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
Kate,
maybe that could be a new one we can watch later. But Bad Batch, oof. And we covered it on this cast. I still was not digging on it, which sucks because fucking Keanu and Aquaman and
Momoa.
Jim Carrey and
Jim Carrey.
Yeah, I don't know.
Jim Carrey.
I wasn't digging on that one, but that's all I've been watching. Bob, what you been watching, my guy?
I watched this docu-series on Netflix that's called Catching Killers. The second season dropped, I think, over the weekend, and there's like 4 episodes of it. And I have a hard time watching a lot of true crime stuff. It just feels like too exploitive to me, I think. But the way this show is framed is like they interview the police officers that catch these bad people. And so it feels like, I don't know, I can engage with the story in a way that feels okay, because these cops are just telling you exactly the steps they went through
their story
to find the bad guy. Yeah. And it's really interesting because I don't know anything about detective work, obviously. So it's cool to hear them go through step by step and
day by day.
And they catch the bad guy in the end. That's the whole point of the show is how they caught the bad guy. But these 4 episodes, the first one is about BTK, how they caught BTK. The second was about a string of murders in California, I think, in 2006 that I never heard of, but it's about this person that was just driving around late at night and would pull up next to a pedestrian and just shoot them with a shotgun and drive away. How impossible?
Son of Sam style.
How impossible is it to catch somebody doing that? There's just no evidence. They just drive away immediately. But so it's amazing to hear how these people work with no information whatsoever and eventually catch this person. And the episode 3 and 4 is a 2-parter about this one guy who may or may not be into cannibalism, which was it dives into this whole underworld of shit that I didn't even know existed and stuff. And
damn,
it was kind of eye opening and it just nuts. Anyway,
is there a cannibalism black market out there?
Maybe, dude. Maybe.
If you can dream it, they're probably already doing it.
Oh no!
Yeah.
People finding others
Good camp blood, ain't you?
so fucked up like them.
Well-
Is there a cannibal subreddit?
I'm sure there probably was.
So
at least.
there was a website that may or may not still be around that they talk about in the show, and like that's how they like eventually caught the guys. Like they used that website to their advantage and like caught them.
They should catch everyone on that website.
Shit is nuts. I also watched the most recent Resident Evil movie, Resident Evil: Welcome to Raccoon City.
I heard it's bad.
So after seeing the trailer for that movie, I was like, that's going to be a complete piece of shit. Like, it's one of the worst trailers I've seen in a long time. I put the movie on, though, and I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good.
Really? Okay.
So I'm not super familiar with the video games, but I've like seen people play them here and there. So like I kind of recognize these set pieces in the movie as being directly...
Like me on our YouTube, right?
Exactly, yeah. I watch all that shit. So, like, I think from what I gather, this movie is much closer to the plot of the video games than the original Resident Evil movies that came out were.
Yeah.
And, like, the set pieces that they build are, like, really impressive. And the vast majority of the creatures are, like, practical, and they look really good, I think.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So, like, it's not like a mind-blowing movie. It's like a fun popcorn movie. Like, if you want to watch, like, a horror action movie that's based on some video games, like, this is going to deliver that. And I enjoyed it, man. I think my biggest complaint is it's a little long in the tooth. It's like an hour 45, and it should have been like a 90-minute movie. But other than that, I think it's a pretty fun popcorn flick, though.
Yeah, I might have to check that out then.
Check it out. The last thing I got to mention is the new Steven Soderbergh movie that dropped on HBO Max called Kimmy. It's about this girl that works for a company that's similar to like your Google or your Amazon. They've got like a little in-home device like an Alexa or something. And whenever people ask the Alexa or Kimmy in this situation to do something and it like misunderstands them, she listens in real time and like auto corrects Kimmy so that Kimmy understands and does what the person wants them to do. And as she's doing that, one day she hears what she thinks might have been a sexual assault or a murder, like something terrible happens and she overhears it. So she escalates the bit of audio to like, her manager and like the owner of the company, and they like look into it, and it turns out the company is like into some other things that maybe they shouldn't be into. And it's got sort of like a rear window aspect to it where it's like set in modern day and there is a pandemic, and like she doesn't want to go outside because of that. So she's got neighbors. She lives in a high rise and she's got neighbors that lives across the street, and they kind of like communicate through their windows and stuff. And like, so there's like some rear window type shit going on. But it's a 90-minute movie. It's like a really tight thriller, and I dug it. I really enjoyed it for what it was. So yeah, that's Kimmy.
Yeah.
Kimmy on HBO Max.
All right.
Kimmy Schmidt, that one?
That's
Nope.
Okay.
I'm going to check that out.
That's all I've been watching. Let's go ahead and get into our last segment, which is, of course, our Hotline Screams.
Hotline Scream.
If you are listening and would like to call in and leave us a voicemail to be featured on our next show, hit us up at 904-638-3231. We got 3 voicemails this week. First up, we're going to hear from our boy Brandon. Let's hear what he has to say.
What up, bitches? It's Brandon. Sorry for the noise. Driving my work truck. And also, I have a cold. So, really coming into this hot. I'm just calling about the prompt from last week's episode about what's your favorite remake. I'd have to say Evil Dead. That remake is like a 5 out of 5 for me. I love that movie so much. It's just, I'll throw it on in the background. If I'm struggling to find something to watch at night, I'll throw it on. I mean, that opening scene is just so fucking good. I love that movie. And then, yeah, like you guys saying the Hotline Kate thing. Man, my wife and I are thinking about sex right now. We're both sick. Our kids just got to go over being sick. It's just Who fucking knows, right? Maybe something will happen. Maybe it'll like bam out of nowhere. Whoa! But as of right now, that's on the back burner, baby. So, thanks for keeping me sane during these trying times. It's been a lot the last 2 weeks, and honestly, the Slack has really, really helped. And I appreciate you guys for having a platform like that we can all chat on. And actually, it's the Joe Bob fucking Valentine's Day thing today. And then that's when I joined. It's been a year. So, happy anniversary, you bitches. All right. This is Stroke, man. Peace and out. Peace.
Be stroking, damn.
I guess you can't have a kink if you're not having sex. Is that a thing? Because not having sex is some people's kink.
About.
They don't have
time. Even think about it.
Yeah, but like the prompt was, tell us about your kinks.
Oh.
So I guess if you're like, it's like a can't have kink if you don't have sex.
Too busy to think on it, dog.
Don't give Brandon shit. He's sick and he's raising kids, okay?
He's having a hard time.
Hey, that's his kink.
Happy anniversary, Brandon. Damn. Joined us a year ago to the day. That's pretty dope, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Also, Evil Dead definitely belongs in the conversation.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's a great it's one of the best, like, certainly, within the past decade, knockout remakes for sure.
And God knows there's been so fucking many, especially these past, like, 20 years or so.
Yeah.
To the point where, like, I would be shocked. I mean, you would think that more of them would be good. Is what I'm trying to get.
Or at least decent.
Yeah. Evil Dead is like usually definitely really stands out.
Maybe in a couple years, though, hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be talking about how baller the Nosferatu remake is.
I bet we will be. I
hope we are.
I call no shots anymore. I'm not doing it.
It's our
if
boy,
it's good, then
Bobby Eggers is directing it though. Like
I know that.
I mean, come
I
on.
know.
Babu Eggers? Damn.
I'll call that shot for Babu Eggies.
Oh no.
All right. Yeah, good pick, Brandon. It's crazy to think in a year that movie will be 10 years old. That's fucking nuts.
That's nuts.
That is fucking nuts.
Evil Dead.
Yeah, what a great decade that was of horror. Yeah. Now we're in the shit.
It's all coming to a close. Thanks for calling.
Nope's coming.
That's true. We got another voicemail next up. We're going to hear from our girl, Nicole. Let's hear what she has to say.
Hey
guys, Nicole here. As you know, because I always bring it up, February is Women in Horror Month. And I'm very excited that this week's episode was directed by a female. And I know that was not intentional. It just happened to win the poll pick, but that makes my heart happy. And so my question for you guys is, what is your favorite female-directed horror film? I have many, but I would love to hear what you guys have to say. And also, in response to the prompt, which was either what are your Valentine kinks or Valentine stories, I don't really have good ones for either of those, but we talked a little bit on the Slack about, like, low-key cheap Valentines. I believe there was some White Castle discussion. And this year, David and I are going to do the low-key thing, and I think we're just going to go to Waffle House. So when you've been together as long as we have, you've done the fancy dinner thing quite a bit. And we just celebrated my birthday in a big way. So we thought, you know what? Let's do what we did when we were young and broke, and let's go to Waffle House. So I'm very much looking forward to that. So anyway, thanks, guys, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Talk about your smothered Valentine's Day. That shit is hilarious to me.
Extra gravy, please.
I'm so glad that my relationship is not at all like we have to go somewhere fancy. No, there's no pressure to do anything like that. We just have a good time, and so good on you for saying
that sounds
Nicole.
Baller. Yeah, that's the way to do it. I think you just enjoy yourself, man. That's a solid question. And yeah, we do everything we do is just on accident. Apparently, we're talking about a love story that was directed by a female in Women in Horror Month, and all of that was planned.
That was intentional.
It was all planned. But that's a great question.
If only she was black.
We
get the hat trick.
Black History Month. Yeah. Our favorite horror movie directed by a female director. I don't know, what do you guys think? You got something off the top of the head?
I was trying to look up some. Raw comes to mind. Is a movie I really enjoy.
That's
directed by a woman. Yeah. Babadook is up there.
Yeah, Babadook is the one for me. Like that's the one I immediately thought of because I just did that review. But like, even looking up, I also looked up just to see like if there's anything else that maybe took precedence. But that really is just like a perfect movie for me.
We covered Tigers Are Not Afraid, and that movie is baller.
Oh, yeah.
American Psycho.
I was about to say, is that directed by a woman? Okay.
It is. I think
Near Dark.
Mine. Yeah, Near Dark is fucking baller, too. American Psycho is
some
probably
fucking
American Psycho's got to be up there. I would say it's between Babadook, Raw, and American Psycho. Just from the list, I'm looking. Invitation. Ooh, I see Invitation on this list.
I didn't remember that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm like looking at a list, but
Karen Kusama directed that.
Okay, that movie, I love the shit out of that movie.
Pet Sematary?
Humanoids from the Deep?
Not so big on Pet Sematary.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, if we're going to...
Humanoids from the Deep is dope. Fuck yeah.
That was
That's
like
legit.
Mostly directed by a female, though. You got to remember.
Well, yeah, then they brought in... Yeah, that was some bullshit. I wish she had a director's cut or something. That would have been dope.
Slumber Party Massacre.
Which is great. We got to talk about our girl Jackie Kong with Blood Diner and The Being, which the 1-2 hitters. I love
we
them.
got to.
I love
we
them both.
got to.
The one and the two.
Don't make me
punch.
Please don't make me say anything
ill about
this.
A woman director during Woman in Horror Month.
Don't make.
You're forcing my hand, Bob.
You're really putting the screws to me here, Bob.
Babe.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm changing my answer to The Being. That's my number one.
Oh God!
All right.
Oh
well,
God!
Good on Jackie.
Oh God!
Don't make me do it, Bob.
Don't.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if that exactly.
You don't know what death is.
I don't know if that exactly answers Nicole's question, but there's just a lot of movies that we like from female directors.
Yeah, I mean, I could pick a top one, but it's
my number
American
one is Babadook. It's pretty a tough call between American Psycho,
Invitation,
Invitation. Yeah, I love all of those movies.
Me too.
But Babadook is kind of a perfect for me.
The Bing.
The Bang.
Thanks.
What about this movie, Bob? You just gave it 5 stars.
Yeah, this movie.
I love this movie too. Thanks for calling, Nicole. Hope you
more
guys,
than the Bing.
No, I don't know. They're like my children. I can't choose my favorite. Hope you
got
guys
so many angles. It's almost just a curve. They're like you're illegit, huh, Bob?
Enjoy those smothered covered hash browns. That sounds like a wonderful Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Thanks for calling, Nicole. Next up, we're going to hear from our boy Tom. Let's hear what he has to say.
Hey boys, it's Tom. How you doing tonight? I'm just calling because something came up on the Slack that people were talking about Quentin Tarantino films, and I want to tell you a story about seeing one of my favorite Quentin Tarantino films in theaters, which has nothing really to do with Quentin Tarantino. So it was my first year of college. I was going to American University up in Washington, D.C. There was a great theater scene up there in the early 2000s, and Kill Bill and another movie came out the exact same day, and I was like, well, it's Friday, I don't have any classes, I'm going to double feature that bitch. So I went and I saw Kill Bill on this giant screen, volume 1. Damn theater must have sat about 400, 500 people, and there were only about 20 people in the theater because it was still an early showing. And I was like, awesome, this movie rocks, this movie fucks, it's an amazing movie. And then I went to go see a movie based on a video game, based on one of my favorite Sega video games, and that movie was House of the Dead. So yeah, I saw Uwe Boll's House of the Dead on opening day with no knowledge about what an Uwe Boll film was, and I was just flabbergasted by how incredible that movie was, because that movie is such a piece of shit. And this was before he decided he wanted it to be funny and added in a bunch of fart noises with his, like, funny cut of the Dead or whatever. But man, House of Dead and Kill Bill Volume 1, quite an experience. You gents take care.
I've never seen
that's
that.
like horseshoe theory going on because you've got a really good director and a really bad director, but they kind of had sort of a similar action-packed sort of
I've never seen
approach.
House of the Dead either.
Have you seen that, Randy?
I've seen bits of it. I've seen bits of Uwe Boll's work in general because he was, at least for a long time, like the internet's favorite directorial punching bag.
Yeah.
Not undeserved. But
Yeah, I'm familiar with that too. And apparently he made a fart cut of his movie. What the fuck?
I guess so. I mean, I respect that. Good for you.
I've seen that on like the worst horror movie lists of all time, like over and over again. I've never seen it.
Yeah, me neither. I'm looking at what is this done, dude? Or what?
It's like if you ever played Duke Nukem, it's basically like the film.
Yeah, I know.
Where it's just
game.
like half edgy bullshit.
I see.
He adapted the movie the game Postal, which is widely considered the most offensive video game ever widely released, or something like that.
Blood Rain.
Another ringer.
Yeah.
Blood Rain.
Rampage?
Yeah. Basically, yeah.
Oh, God.
Not the one with the rock.
I don't know. 2009
No.
Rampage.
2009.
Oh, no. This does not look like. No. Okay. Never mind.
I've never seen that one. So, but yeah, it's, he kind of exists in the Tommy Wiseau realm, except he's very defensive and literally challenged critics to fight him in a boxing match and beat their asses. So, and
he's got a lot of work. I mean, he's directed a lot of movies. They all look like shit, but he's directed a shit ton.
Apparently, I don't know enough about this dude. He literally fought critics in the ring.
Oh yeah, he challenged him to boxing matches and beat the shit out of several of them.
Accepted?
Yeah, I think so at least there's some I don't know the full story here. I have no idea, but I didn't watch it at the time. I found out about it later. But I know that at least a few people accused him of being like, "Oh, it's just a PR thing. You come on, we fight, I'll take a dive or you'll take whatever."
Okay.
And then he started actually and none of a lot of these people weren't trained in anything. And he was, and he
that's kind of funny.
That's fucked up is what it is.
It's pretty fucked up.
Like,
if that's true, but that's also like, some hurt egos might just be saying that. I don't really know.
It is funny, but it's also mostly fucked up. That's interesting. I'm going to have to read about that.
We're going to start a straight shilling boxing match with all those iTunes critics.
Dude, step into the ring, dumbass 69.
You want to literally fight me, bro?
Like, you want to fight me, bro?
I'll fight you in real life.
Let's take it to the octagon,
Come on,
bro.
The octagon.
Brother.
You're my
Let's take it to the cage, brother.
My octa bitch, brother.
Wow, clever shit coming from Uwe.
He said it. He said it.
Women in Horror Month.
Thanks for calling, Tom. What a hell of a double feature. That's pretty nuts, man. Kill Bill. I dig those movies though. Again, if you guys are listening, want to hit us up, leave us a voicemail to be featured on next week's show. You can do so at 904-638-3231. You guys have any prompts you want to throw out for next week?
Nope.
How was your Valentine's Day?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Yeah. How'd it go? Yeah. How were those waffles at the Waffle House? How much syrup did you consume?
Did you get some chocolate gravy on them biscuits? Tell me all about it.
Tell me all about it. Heinz 57? How much of that shit did you shotgun? How many shots? Yeah.
Be stroking.
Somebody be stroking. But not be stroking. Be stroking's not stroking. Somebody else is stroking. Hopefully all
Cecil
you guys
be stroking.
Hopefully all you guys had a lovely Valentine's Day. We're going to be back next week with a brand new show, as always. We're going to be talking about that hot new Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie dropping on Netflix on Friday. We'll see, man. We'll see. Hopefully it's good.
We will see.
We'll see.
Purely and simply evil.
Slam the Texas Chainsaw Massacre into your eyeballs. Until then, please rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. You can follow us on Twitter at STR8_chilling, on Instagram at Straight Chilling Podcast. You can send us an email through our website, straightchillingpodcast.com. If you want to join in on our daily Slack channel conversations, just hit us up on one of our social media outlets, and I'll send you a link so you can join in on the fun. And until next week, as always, all you mother truckers, please keep chilling.
I don't like sand.